Hi guys, Dwog Russ here with another battle report for my blog, War Games Review. This is my first attempt at a battle report for Field of Glory. That's the new historical gaming set that I bought 2 or 3 weeks ago. I played a simulation game, sometimes called a solo game, meaning I just laid out both armies and played both sides. Recorded it in Battle Reporter, didn't take any actual I'm sorry, Battle Chronicler, my apologies. Didn't take any actual photographs, so just trying to get a feel for the game. This is my very first time with Field of Glory. Like I'd said, I did a previous video with introductory thoughts, but this one is an actual game. Some of you will find this to be informative. I'm sure the majority will find it to be amusing because, frankly, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have a trainer or anything like that, just somebody who's interested in the series, interested in the periods, and bought the books, tried to figure it out, tried to start playing. So here's the deployment. And this game is the post-Viking Scandinavians versus the feudal Polish from the Army Supplement book, Oath of Fealty. At the top, that's the Scandinavians. The bottom is the Polish. And I just use the starter armies for each. In cases where there's multiple of the same unit, just to prevent them from being confused, I labeled them either with a number or a color. So starting with the Scandinavians on the top left, there's the blue Lidang, and they're classified as offensive spearmen with a troop commander attached to them. Next over slightly behind is a group of archers. Then we've got two more groups of Lidang, one labeled gold, one labeled red. They're joined together in a battle line with a commander-in-chief, who I believe is a field commander, attached to the right of the two units. Next to them, a block of crossbowmen. Behind them, one group of knights, the red knights, and next to them, another group, the blue knights, with a troop commander attached. And then slightly angled, the idea there is to prevent flanking, is the green Lidang. The bottom left, now with the Polish side of things, pardon me, a group of noble cavalry. Now the name can be deceiving in the book, that's one thing I noticed. Even though they're called noble cavalry, they're actually classified as knights, which would be a higher skilled, heavier type of cavalry. So they're knights, even though it's called noble cavalry. I labeled the first one B, the second one A. Obviously, I didn't go in the correct sequence there. No problem. On the front line, got some light foot troops, the peasant archers, in two groups labeled A and B. Behind them, two groups of spearmen labeled A and B. Now, these are defensive spearmen by classification. The group to the left has a troop commander attached. The group on the right has the field commander, the commander-in-chief attached. And then off on the right wing, there's three different foot groups: the Lithuanian cavalry, the Hungarian cavalry with a troop commander attached, and the Russian cavalry, kind of staggered. Of those three groups, only the Russian cavalry is actually cavalry. Again, kind of deceiving names, a little strange here. The Lithuanians and the Hungarians are light horse by classification. So, in this scenario, a couple special things you need to keep in mind. First of all, this is my very first time playing, so I imposed a couple special rules. First of all, no terrain at all, which I realize is horribly unrealistic, but the whole purpose of this is for me to learn the game. So, the Scandinavians from Denmark or Finland or Norway or Sweden, wherever they're from, got in their boats, came down to the Poland shores, landed, found a large football field and decided, hey, here's a good place to fight. There's no trees or anything, and for some reason the Polish took them up on the offer. And the other thing is I'm leaving out a couple of the more advanced rules. I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but one that I didn't want to incorporate just because I didn't want to take the time to figure out is intercepting charges. So anytime there's a charge, it's either going to be evade or hold, no other option. So the Polish get to go first, and the first turn is just as boring as can be. Everybody moves forward pretty proportionately. Now, from the Polish's point of view, I've decided that their strategy, whether this is valid or not, I have no idea, is just to push forward on the center and left. Hope that the archers can harass and hold. The spearmen can hold whoever comes against them. The noble cavalry, if they combine their charges on the Lidang or the archers, can wipe them out and then come around into the flank. The three groups on the right of the cavalry and the lighter horse, their job is just to go distract the units on the right flank, like the green Lidang and the red knights and the blue knights, and just prevent them from coming around into the flank of my middle blocks there. Whether or not that's a valid strategy or not, we shall see. Scandinavians' first turn, also fairly boring. Everyone pushing straight ahead, just trying to prevent flanking, although the red knights and the blue knights are going to come out and try to hold up those three cavalry slash horse groups and just hopefully overpower them. Again, I have no idea what I'm doing here. Polish turn 2. Just moving ahead more. Very boring. The only thing of note is that the Lithuanian cavalry and the Hungarian cavalry on the right join together into a battle line. Now I did notice they're a little, apparently the heavier of a horse you get, the slower you are. Light horse would be the fastest, cavalry would be of a medium speed, and then knights would be the slowest. So the idea there is that the two light horse units, the Lithuanians and the Hungarians, for the Polish, which I don't know why Lithuanians and Hungarians are part of a Polish army, but then again, I don't know much about the history of this historical army. But anyhow, they are going to move faster than the Russians, who will hopefully come in with a little bit of punch later on. Scandinavians turn 2. Nothing too noteworthy here other than the blue knights did join up with the green Lidang and form a battle line. Everything else pretty much the same. Crossbowmen are trying to get a position to shoot. The archers are going to move directly behind the Lidangs in the middle of the gold and the red, because if those two Polish cavalry units, who are actually knights on the left hand side of the screen, break through, I don't want them to get plowed into. And Polish turn 3 is the first turn we have with shooting. And my first observation that, unlike Warhammer Fantasy Battles, shooting in this game doesn't do very much. Maybe that's an oversimplification, but at least here with just having a couple shooty units, I mean, it was like, it would have taken some really good rolling to have any effect whatsoever. The peasant archers for the Polish, both of them shot straight ahead. I used that little target kind of symbol to mean they were shot at, but absolutely nothing happened. I mean, nothing at all. Didn't force a cohesion test, didn't even get enough to take the cohesion test, didn't get even close to death rolls. And then the Polish, since in this game shooting is happening for both armies in each turn, there's an active player and inactive player, but it doesn't mean that the inactive player can't do anything. Again, unlike Warhammer. The crossbowmen for the Scandinavians, who are blue, shot at the peasant archers A. I put that little hit symbol on there, just meaning that they actually did enough hits to force a cohesion test, but they succeeded in their cohesion test, so no change in levels or anything like that. So the Scandinavians turn 3, and we finally get into some action here. So my two Lidang units, and I've probably been pronouncing that wrong the whole time, I have no idea, charge straight ahead into the light archers that were harassing them previously. And just because I was curious and wanted to see what would happen, I evaded with one unit, went straight back through the spearmen on the Polish side. And the peasant archers A decided to hold, which, you know, obviously in hindsight, is probably going to be a bad decision. But I just wanted to see how the combat mechanic worked. And by the end of that phase, They have a little skull next to them. I'm using that skull to represent one drop in the cohesion level. So they went from steady to disrupted. Ah, and here I even saved some close-up pictures. So yeah, the gold leading made the peasant archers B flee backwards through the spearmen, and the red leading, which would be on the right of this picture, got one death roll on peasant archers A, and also dropped them a level in the cohesion test. Nope, got a bit ahead of myself. That was after melee. They took another death roll. So, Polish turn 4. I didn't capture a screenshot in Battle Chronicler until after I got quite a ways in, which was silly. So this is actually with the results of impact showing, but just ignore it for now. Starting on the right, the Hungarian cavalry charged the combined leading Blue Knights. The Lithuanian cavalry charged the Red Knights. The peasant archers A are still in combat with the red leading. Spearmen B, the red spearmen for the Polish, charged straight ahead into the gold leading. The noble cavalry A moved around to the side of the gold leading to get a flank charge on them in their next turn. Hopefully, keep your fingers crossed for the Polish. And the noble cavalry B charged the blue leading. Now, again, first game ever, don't know a lot of strategy. Obviously, the Polish made some bad decisions here, me acting on behalf of the Polish, because generally speaking, a cavalry or knight unit charging a spearman unit is not a good idea. And a light horse unit charging a unit of knights, also probably generally not a good idea. So after impact, you can see some things here that the Polish aren't doing well. The Lithuanian cavalry dropped a cohesion level. The Hungarian cavalry, in the impact phase at least, charged the combined Blue Knight Green Leading battle line and lost 2 of their 4 bases, although they did not drop a cohesion level in the impact phase. The Spearmen B for the Polish dropped a cohesion level, and that's one thing, is that defensive spearmen should probably not be charging, because when you got spearmen versus spearmen, generally the ones that hold have an advantage over the ones that charged. They point their sharp sticks forward. And then on the far left, the noble cavalry aren't doing so good. They've also dropped a cohesion level. And that's important because if they don't hold up, noble cavalry A is going to get a flank charge of the severest kind. So here's a close-up of the impact views. I pretty much already described this, got a little ahead of myself. Yeah, the noble cavalry not only dropped a cohesion level, they also lost a base. And in the center, kind of what I already described. Spearmen B charged in, they lost a base and dropped a cohesion level. And then going with the melee view, because impact phase and melee are 2 different things in Field of Glory. Melee is like the ongoing combat. The peasant archers A dropped yet another base and a cohesion level. They are now fragmented. They've also hit their auto break point, but I don't realize that until next turn, in case you're wondering why they're not auto breaking. Spearman B didn't get any worse off, they just stayed right where they were. So then, melee view continue. Now we're looking way back on the left. The noble cavalry B are really in bad shape. They're down to 1 base, and they've dropped all the way from steady to fragmented in 1 charge. That was a rather ridiculous charge, in hindsight. So, yeah, if you're Polish, what you feared the most happened. The noble cavalry B broke, started running away. The blue Lidang in their pursuit didn't go far enough to catch them, but did go far enough to come into the flank of the noble cavalry. A. So this is the end of Polish turn 4, and the great big skulls mean complete goners. Because the two units with the really large skulls, the Hungarian cavalry on the right and the noble cavalry B on the left, had dropped enough bases that they were at their auto break or auto destruction point. The peasant archers A should have been too. I just didn't think of it or notice it. The troop commander 2, who was with the Hungarian cavalry, actually moved over to join the Lithuanian cavalry. I know the arrow makes it look like he was moving from further back. That's one weird thing about Battle Chronicler. It doesn't suit the whole like attaching commanders concept to Field of Glory real well, because if you move it partway through a turn, it measures from where they were at the end of last turn, not the beginning of the same turn. No big deal. So Scandinavian turn 4. Really not a lot happening here. The blue Lidang just aligning themselves on the left to the cavalry they flanked into a little better. And let's see, the red knights expanded their frontage to overlap the Lithuanian cavalry. This is something Battle Chronicler doesn't display really well either until you zoom in on the individual base level, because it makes it look like they added bases. Really, it's just 3 in the front row, 1 in the back row. Yeah, I know that just a little maneuvering, which isn't going to matter in a few seconds. So here's the impact phase view. Nothing that really matters all that much other than the blue Lidang who overran the noble cavalry last turn. They still count as charging. So when you get hit in the flank in Field of Glory, you immediately drop cohesion levels, plural, 2 of them. So flanks are a really big deal. So before fighting even starts, they're already fragmented. And then going to the melee, I guess we'll work left to right. The Spearman B got kind of unlucky here. The two groups were fairly evenly matched, but they were disordered to start with, and now they're down to fragmented. And then the Peasant Archers A went all the way to broken and fled, even though they should have been auto-broken, removed from the table already. I didn't think of it till just now. And things are kind of falling apart here. The blue Lidang don't do any wounds to the noble cavalry, oddly enough, but because of the flank and just the matchups and the points of advantage, the noble cavalry breaks, runs away, running through the peasant archers. This is supposed to be the thing where some of them are on one side and the others are on the other side. Can't really illustrate that, but doesn't matter because they're gonna, well, you'll see. And then looking on the way right hand side in melee, the Lithuanian cavalry lost a base and they dropped a cohesion level, so they're now fragmented. And you can see there a little better now that we're zoomed in how the red knights are 3 in the front row, 1 in the back row. And that's the end of Scandinavian turn 4, and before we even got started hardly, the end of the game. The Polish army routed because at the end of the turn when you evaluate the auto breaks and things like that, Spearman A has the big skull, which means they are auto-broken because they've lost enough of their unit based on their classification as light. They lose 3 out of 6. They're done for, removed from the board. Noble Cavalry A is currently broken, and Lithuanian Cavalry on the right is currently fragmented. And I'll add that up on the next screen here, or these little flying in things. So here's who's destroyed. Noble Cavalry B, they were on the far left, remember, charged foolishly into the Lidang. Hungarian Cavalry was on the right, who combined the combined green Lidang, blue knight battle line foolishly. Peasant Archers A, who should have been auto-destroyed, but I noticed that at the end of this turn. And currently routed Noble Cavalry A and fragmented the Lithuanian cavalry. So that adds up to the number of points for an army rout, which I think was 9 in this case. Yeah, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or something like that. 2 points for every destroyed and routed, and then 1 point for any fragmented on board. And that actually ends the game. So I guess closing thoughts are kind of a fun game, learning some basic rules. Probably get more fun as I go, as I figure things out. Um, Obviously, the Polish lost 9-0, pretty bad defeat, but it was just the way the turns ended up and me not knowing what to do and charging in stupid places when I shouldn't charge in. I guess the main moral of the story is, unlike Warhammer, charging isn't that big of an advantage. In fact, a lot of times charging is a disadvantage. Cavalry, knights, light horse should, generally speaking, I mean, maybe there's an exception, but generally speaking, never charge heavy foot in the front, especially spearmen. I mean, it's just, you might as well be hoping to die. It's pretty much a suicide mission. If you are light foot and you get charged by heavy foot, you should evade because then you have a chance to live. If you hold, you're almost certain to die. Um, yeah, try to have commanders with your unit for morale checks, and try to have rear support by having a equal to or heavier than unit behind you is generally helpful, although wasn't nearly enough to save the Polish in the case of like the Archers A, for example. So I don't know if you got anything out of that or not, or if it's just a waste of YouTube space, but I thought it was interesting, so I decided to record it because probably a couple years from now I'll look back and laugh about how poorly played this game was. Hope you learned something. Thanks, guys.